Hello, welcome to the Squarebase Show with Val and Rob, where we're going to discuss the latest news and information coming out about the old world.
News and information about the old world. What a wonderful day it is.
Woo! Well, specifically, we are going to be talking about the upcoming Empire book, soon to be released. We're going to be talking some information about that. And I'm very much looking forward to this. Very much looking forward to this. We are, when we normally record on a Wednesday, we are a little bit running a little bit over time. So you should be seeing some other shows coming out from us in the next couple of weeks/days. And because I have an All World event coming up soon as well. So list review and also event review coming soon. But we're going to have a quick meander through the information we've got in the upcoming Empire book, which I'm excited about. Very excited about, because I'd like to see Absolutely. Empire. I was painting a City Sigmar model just this week alone, and as I was painting it, I was regaling myself with the wistful lamentations of Empire and how much I love the Empire. So much so that I cracked open my End Times books when I got home that night and started reading through my limited edition End Times books, obviously, and then obviously, and reading through those, and stupendous. Anyway, before we do get into all that info, though, Val, how you been? What's been going on?
Been doing good. Played a game of Warhammer last weekend.
Whoa, the old world, no less.
Warhammer the Old World, and it was actually tremendous fun. Played 2,500 points. I won.
Why are we playing 2,500 points, brother? What's going on there?
Just thought we'd mix it up a little. Thought we'd mix it up a little, bring a couple extra things. I was playing Troll Horde, so I was like, I would like more large things.
So what format was this? Like XL Light? Diet XL?
I believe they call that medium. It was SBM. I had a really wonderful time. American Thanksgiving last week I was down in Buffalo with some cousins. Picked myself up a little cold. Pretty sure it's just an old-fashioned cold.
Yeah.
But
sure.
How could you ever find out? I don't know. I got so many vaccines pumping around me at all times. I don't even know what thoughts are my own anymore. So,
but incredible phone reception.
Excellent phone reception, all the G's, and 1080p. So life is good, man. How about you? How was your weekend? Did you have an event?
So actually, if you watch your Squarebase, it might not seem like it, but actually, past week and a half or so, I've been super ill. And I'm not really sure what it was. Something like took me down. So much so, I even ended up going to we have this kind of, in England, we have this thing called a walk-in center, which is kind of like a less serious A&E. It's just where you just pop in and you be like, something's wrong. Are you like, is it like bleeding out your face wrong? They're like, no. You're like, right, sit there and wait. I popped in there. And they did me a check over, and then she was just like, there doesn't seem to be anything. Your throat's inflamed, because I think my voice does sound a bit rough. She's like, but you don't have any fever or anything. But I've just been no energy, just been wiped out, just been feeling very, very low.
When you go into an English walk-in clinic, does, like, no matter what the issue is, do they just hand you a lemon and or a lime, and you just have to leave?
Well, obviously, I have to leave my coal-covered boots at the door as I walk in.
Naturally. They delouse you. They just hit you with that white fucking.
Yeah. And obviously they rip off a crust of bread and pass it to me with a watery soup, and as I wait in the waiting room.
Surely not. They'd be lining up around the block just to go. Come on, you can't give that stuff away. But kind of a socialist paradise do you live in?
Exactly. So that means it's been a week of just trying to get the bits done that I need to do, but no extracurricular work. But I did run an event of the weekend, so I had an AOS event of the weekend, and we got an Old World event this week coming up, which is very exciting. But behind the scenes, I've been really, really enjoying working on, as of yesterday, I've started giving feedback on the prototypes for some endless spell stuff. Well, manifest.
Oh, yes!
Sorry, the vortex designs, which is very cool for Old World. I did have a little game lined up on Thursday that I was going to play against the wonderful Jack, one of my clubmates, super cool, against his ogres, but I just didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have the energy. I felt too sick.
Was that Jack?
Yeah, Jack. But then, no,
Jack.
not Jack Allen Jack, not Ban the Green Knight Jack, other Jack. And then, but I was able to get myself over 100 hobgrots delivered to me.
What? Did you send out a bat signal for hobgrots? How'd that happen?
Because in the second edition Age of Sigmar box, there was you got 20 or 40 hobgrots.
Yes.
And that box, third edition box, that box didn't sell very well. And also 1 million people, it was kind of odd. Everyone seemed to buy it, but it also always seemed to be left on shelves. So I'm not really sure what the situation was. Maybe it sold, maybe it didn't. Yeah, maybe just overproduction because lots of people had it. So hobgrots are just everywhere because you got 20 in the box and no one wanted them. Even if you were using them in AC, you need 10. So you're I don't need all of these. So I just did out the bat signal. Everyone's I got 300 in this little box back here. So that's for my Empire army. Not Empire army, my Chaos Dwarf army for the hobgrot horde.
I was about to say, well, that's in. Hobgoblins are not in Empire, Rob, but they are in Chaos Dwarfs. Which you got back. Your legendary Chaos Dwarf horde.
Yeah, they're ready. So I'm trying to get them all on bases so that I can play a couple of games and start the meme, because I've been inspired so much by my clubmate, Mr. Andy 2D6, who has been doing The Line.
And moved to Saudi Arabia?
The Line. Have you not been keeping up with this content? It's perfection.
I probably not since the spring. I'm ashamed to say. I got to catch up on my Andy 2D6.
Well, okay, so just to keep you updated with the current hot gossip, because Andy at this point has entered what I believe to be his true troll stage of existence. So I'm putting a picture up on screen now so everyone can see if you listen to the podcast. At our local club, Alex and Andy Andy threw down in the club chat. He's I'm doing the line because there's the dream line where it's as long as the table, right? But obviously with 2 inches either side in case you ever have to give ground, because you don't want to be
that should be enough.
Yeah, you don't want to be pushed off the board. So he created the mega line, and then Alex met him with his also warrior-based additional mega line. And Andy had the character that makes the unit unbreakable once you decide to stand.
That's funny. Okay, that's Thorgrim?
Yeah, Thorgrim, I think. Yeah. This is absolutely real. And Andy's now become obsessed with the line. And wants to make more lines. And I think he's gone mad. So I want to defeat him with the square.
The square.
The square.
But, actually, no.
Rectangle?
I guess it has to be a square.
It has to be a square if you maximize it. Yeah,
true. So I guess that's what you have to do.
Yeah. So I'm thinking 300 hobgrots in a square.
I don't think that's going to fit in deployment zones, but...
I'm going to make it tribut. That's what I'm going to do.
Actually, let's just see here. Calculator. All right, continue with your segue, and I'll interrupt you once I do my math.
All right. Anyway, so Andy's been causing some kerfuffles online because not only did he bring the line to the last GT, well, he took 2 lines to the last GT. This is practice for if he's taking the mega line to the GT this weekend. And whether or not it's going to see play. Now, I need you to know, everyone who plays against this has an amazing time. I think one of the things that we're seeing here is a real disconnect between the gaming community and the online community. The reason is because everyone who's played against this army and against Andy is having a great time doing so, because they understand that it's pushing the methodology and mentality of the army to the silliest limit, which I think is really fun, which you see you see that also in other army lists, right? Like big mega blocks of like ogres as an example, or like taking as many screams as you can get in the list. It's like pushing the design space of the game to its zenith, which Andy has played in probably 10 GTs for the old world. Like probably 10, maybe more, probably at least 10. He's got a lot of tournament experience with dwarfs, and so he's enjoying that. He makes the video, like, because he has a YouTube channel, so he plays with the line, makes a battle report, and then people scream at him online, or he posts a picture in the Facebook groups, and people are like, "You're scum, you should die," and he's like, the nicest guy. And everyone who plays against him is like, this is a fun, interesting technical challenge. Like, they're enjoying the experience. Anyway.
I'm also interesting, like, from that photo, I was just looking at it, like, immediately I wasn't it didn't look awful. It kind of looked like a long line of battle. So, that doesn't look atrocious to me. It's like, it's been funny, but like, I don't know, still cool.
You should
also,
see
according to my calculations, a 25 millimeter base is approximately 0.984 inches, which would provide you with the opportunity to go with slightly. So you could do 12. You could do 12 by 12, right?
Yeah. 12 by 12.
Yeah. So you can do 144 square.
Okay, so that's as many as I can have, 144.
In a square, yes. I think.
All right. Okay, that's good. I have 300 Hobgrots now, so 2 squares.
300?
They're so
300.
They're so readily available. I can't begin to. If you're like somewhere in the world, like if you're in Spain and you say to yourself, I might play Chaos Dwarfs, I wonder if I can get some Hobgrots. Just walk into an Age of Sigmar event or a local hobby store and say, all of you have Hobgrots, can I have them? And they'll be like, thank God, someone's going to take these off me. I don't want them.
This is how that guy. This is literally how that guy at Warhammer World in 40K got the bucket of grots. Did you ever see that guy?
Yes, absolutely.
And they were all this god awful second edition pickle helm Gretchen, and he literally just had a bucket of them, and he would pour them onto the table. It's best orc style deployment where people who like you knew a quality orc player when they deployed with a bucket. That's not the only time I've heard of someone deploying orcs with a bucket. So that's fantastic.
So anyway, I don't know where we were. I wasn't able to play many games or get into stuff, but I have lived vicariously through my club mates and hosting events with another event coming up. But soon to be changed over the Christmas period. Got a lot of one-dayers on. I'm hoping to sneak a couple of cheeky games in, so that's going to be very exciting for me.
Cheeky game.
So a cheeky game, and also, do you know what? I'd like to get straight to the info in a moment and catch up with you. But I'm at decision paralysis for the old world. There's so much to paint and play. What do I do?
This is a problem I face all the time. What you do is you go right back to what you did the first time, and you never play anything else. Which is why when I played my game, I just wound up playing Troll Hordes. Because I panicked and I was like, I can't play with another army. I just got to go back to Orcs and Goblins.
So how was the game with Troll Hordes?
Troll Hordes was fun. My trolls, those long bass listeners will know that I was upset when trolls came out in the Grand Army book, and were not on 40 millimeters. Were not on 50 millimeters. They were held back on 40 millimeters, unlike some monstrous infantry, which did get the bump to accommodate larger, newer, nicer sculpts, like the stone Troggoths. What are they? Or are they just Troggoths?
Rock guts.
Rock guts in AOS. Because they're beautiful and so sick. However, I'll tell you this much, Rob. When you have 4 of them, you get basically an entirely extra troll in base contact when you have them on 40 millimeters and not 50.
Oh, wow.
So it's a significant difference. So I don't have... My trolls are on 50s because they look better that way, and that's how I bought them. And I need to rip them all off their bases and put them on 40s because they would be much more effective that way.
Sad.
But it was a lot of fun. I played Oss from the Square Base Discord, and we had a 2,500 point match, as we discussed, Square Base Medium format. And it was actually super fun. He took a bunch of things in stride. I charged in the second turn. I charged his Mornfangs with a big boss on Chariot, Savage Orc big boss on Chariot, and they fled off the table immediately. And that was just fantastic for me. And somehow he continued playing. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I was home, but if that happened to me, I would go home. And then we continued to have a rip roaring fight. It was great.
Oh, perfect. And did you feel a little bit different playing on the tabletop versus some like of the online matches in the online kind of world at the moment with Warhol and all the games that are happening on Warhol?
Oh, Warhol, Espot 2 finals are this week, by the way. We should talk about that. But I actually haven't played on Warhol since the original Espot.
Oh wow!
I got a little game lined up with dear friend of the show, Peter the Falcon. I think tonight.
That'll be my first Christmas battle.
A Christmassy battle. But that'll be my first Warhol experience in a long, long time. I've actually been all tabletop, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
But how do I feel about it? It was good. It's also great having essentially a human computer with you when you're playing this game, because it means I don't have to look up 1,000 things all the time. Because if you don't play this frequently, like all those little things, you have to be like, is that how that works? Or you just say, I'm pretty sure this is how it works. I mean, that also does the trick.
And also sometimes there isn't an answer to how it works.
Sometimes zero answers.
The most fun element.
It's a game that teaches you to be a grown up.
Definitely.
Puts you in a challenging situation with no clear answer. There you go. That's what Warhammer the Old World's all about.
So Espot Final. So if you haven't been keeping up to date with the show and everything that we do here at Square Based, Valve's been running the world's largest tournament, but it has been online for the Old World, called the Espot 2. So Espot 2.
Espot 2.
Part 2,
right.
voila. And there's been several different, there was like pods, there was regionals. We've got to the stage now where we're towards the final, which is this weekend, right?
Yeah, this is the last week. Final is actually going to be, I want to say, 3:30 p.m. No, 8:30 p.m. GMT, 3:30 Eastern will be the finals between Schmuck and King Pash. And it's actually Chaos v Chaos. Both of those fellas defeated the meme of the moment. Royal Host was defeated, as was one of the many mortuary cults that made it into the final tournament.
Interesting.
So Chaos v Chaos on the top table from with two stellar players.
I do wonder if like some of those armies that are like really magic reliant, like while they're very successful at casting, obviously like miscast and stuff, like given a long enough timeline of games, if the dice just run bad, like there's a set, like, when you play Blood Bowl, you cage up, you make the safe plays, but even then sometimes it doesn't go safe. And I wonder if, an army, like a long enough timeline, we end up with armies eventually falling apart, not like falling apart, just having the one bad game.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a Warhammer thing, right? Where dice can abandon you. Usually, it's not the only thing that leads to a loss, but definitely can play a role. In Old World, I think it definitely plays a significant role. But even like something like the Royal Host, the Royal Host meme, right? Where almost the entire army is one unit, and it teleports around. I guess that's true. If it doesn't have the ability to jump around, if you're getting puppeted, and you can't move it around as much, maybe that does limit it a bit. But still, I mean, that was the Death Star, and did not make it to the top table this time out. So that is at very least an interesting takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. That is cool. Okay, so Chaos versus Chaos in the final. Okay, nice. Yeah, and a good point about the puppet from Chaos shutting down the magic is...
Not even sure if the puppet was present, but I'm just saying, like, you're right. Like, magic can be shut down, and those big blocks do depend on being able to teleport around a bit using, that one thing in elementalism.
The Twilight Pathways, traversing the pathways.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The speedy, fast pathways.
I don't know. The one where you can pick it up and put it down.
I think I've nailed that.
Still hasn't been fact. Yeah.
Mystical pathways. There we
Travel
go.
mystical pathways. Of course, it just came to us. It just came to us because we have big brains. Not a helpful chat.
All right, listen. Let's. So finals for Espot TO. Got an event coming up this weekend, so do expect a list review this week from Square Based. I'm going to also try and record the games this week. I'm going to pick some people from this weekend who I think are competent, and I'm going to just stick them on the table for the weekend. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to record their games. I'm going to stick them up on Patreon. That's the goal. So hold me to it, chat.
You've been teasing us for
it's
months.
Just okay. Can I just be honest with you and everyone else? Mm-hmm. I open the doors, I say hello everyone, say hello to everyone, I make a coffee, I look around the room and I think, there are too many darlings here. Like, I feel like the pressure of being recorded is, I just haven't entered it into the old world yet. It's too...
Well, it's true.
It just feels too much. That's how it feels.
I would suggest, why not just throw it up? Why don't you make it a volunteer position?
Yeah, I think my problem is I'm not necessarily certain they're able to play their games. Anyway, I'll see this weekend and we'll see what's going on. I think there's stuff I'd rather not say out loud. Some people really overestimate their capabilities, is what I'm trying to say. They clamor for the starlight, as we've seen from like Britain's Got Talent or The Voice or whatever. They yearn for the to see their name in lights, but not necessarily the skills.
Sure. Yes, I totally understand that. Sometimes we must fly too close to that sun. Please reference my entire life in streaming on the largest stages possible. But sometimes we need these humbling moments in our lives, and also in so doing, we get better together. Getting better together. You know, one thing we could do too, like this is something I have not thrown out there, and by the way, no need to even consider it an idea. But we do have the Patreon, and in the Patreon, Espot 2 is always played. Espot is always played in a stream channel. You have to play your games in a channel, and so that way people are able to be there, and there is more of a community vibe, at least when I played in the first one. Maybe they all hate each other now. I'm not quite sure. But the community vibe is somewhat useful, and because it's a vast group of people, it's not like you see sometimes in public games. And as a result, I think the quality of the games do improve, and players are able to learn faster together. So perhaps we stream a game or two from the TSN using that cool stage feature that they have on the old Discord. And that's where maybe a game streams live first.
Okay. All right, we'll give that a whirl over the weekend. That's a goal anyway. We've got a goal, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing we should talk about today is the new Empire. We've got some Empire info and some Empire teasers coming up as well. So if you haven't been keeping up with the information, the new Arcane Journal for Empire is being released with 2 armies of infamy, one of which is going to feature a cavalry-based kind of list, and one of which is going to feature a more artillery-based sort of like build. But
fully Nuln based. Fully. I think they've said it's actually Nuln specifically, right?
Yes, which is actually, let's start there, shall we? That's quite exciting, because how do you feel if over the course of the next 2 years, or until the new edition comes out, how would you feel about them just dropping some random campaign book where we then got one of the other city-states? Like, it doesn't have to be Empire specifically, but it's one of the other city-states versus, some Orc and Goblin other tribe, maybe like a spider-based tribe or something. Do you think that this is just doing known? Do you think this opens them up to more options in the future?
I think it's cool. How do I want to phrase this? I guess the thing is so far we've only had generic ones. Am I right? I don't think there has been, and by that I mean like it's the royal host of the Tomb Kings and the mortuary cult of the Tomb Kings. It's not like a very specific city's royal host, or it's not. It wasn't. It's not Cetra's royal host, although he can feature in it. The two things from both like a narrative and a game design have different pluses and minuses. One is, even though this is the Nuln Army of Infamy, people are just gonna play it with whatever colored, like color painted city state they have as this detachment. So being general is probably more accurate to how people use it. People will just use it generically, but at the same time, theming it specifically to Nuln makes it, I think, a little bit cooler for those Null-No-Files out there who like really just are deep into the vibes of the black and white and the style of Nuln itself and the artillery and the lore in the background and stuff. So like when my country bumpkins from Stirland show up with their artillery army of infamy, that might break the narrative a little bit, but also that's ultimately how Warhammer players play. They take the rules and they apply whatever armies they have, or they make an army that they think is cool.
Yes, absolutely. I would quite like to see them explore the other city-states. We did say this at the beginning of the Old World. If you go back and watch the early shows, I like the idea that we definitely zero down much more specifically. And if they do this in a much more drip-feed fashion, I think that's actually really, really exciting, kind of like we've seen over the 10-year kind of release of the Old World, Total War Warhammer. We've seen them really flesh some factions out, and we're about to see an ogre refresh because they didn't quite play the way they needed to. We saw that incredible dwarven engineer with our big boat ships, flying boat ships. So, oh god,
Thunder Barge,
the Thunder Barge. So there's a lot. Like they've slowly broken it out. Which I think is super exciting. And I think that we're here as well. Like, you have to remember, this is like, I know many of us saying to ourselves, we wish we could get these things from the past, but also I think we've got a flag in the ground now where the Old World is here for the rest of time. And so, the development team are like, guess we'll get to everything when we get to it, which is pretty exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. So forever and ever, buddy.
For absolutely ever and ever, and that's the way it should be, and I'm very pleased about that. I mean, I can't wait, quite frankly, because one would think that we will get further armies of infamy for the other states and city-states. Specifically, I can't wait for Westerland, which is where Marienburg is. I have a little Nordland army as well, so which doesn't exist in this timeline because Marienburg hasn't split off yet. So it's the wasteland and all that stuff down by Marienburg represented. But there's just so many cool things. I love that they're bringing in, and we'll see this a little bit with this guy, the idea of a lot of mercenaries being parts of these armies and how they're being fleshed out by different mercenary regiments fighting in different parts of the empire. So there's just so much narrative space for them to work with and do cool stuff with. So this is a nice little tip of the iceberg, we hope.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's never going away. Here forever.
Here forever.
Like
us, like Squarebase. All right, okay. So we've just seen the release of this miniature. So before we start to find out about the backstory of this mini, how do you feel about this stupendous new Empire model, Mr. Valhelfinger, and also to people in the comments as well? I would like you to know and let us know what your thoughts are for this Empire miniature straight off the bat, because I think more than I expected, a little divisive online.
Getting some shade. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, what do you think?
I loved him immediately, but I mean, look at that bougie mustache. Look at that big old fuzzy caterpillar on this guy's face. One of my all-time favorite faces, I got to say. Those eyebrows reminds me of a political sciences professor I had in university. Shout out, Doctor. Oh no, it's gone. It's gone from my mind. But anyway, he had the biggest eyebrows of all time, and you could read his facial expressions from the moon. As a result. So that's why I think that's probably a big source of this particular character's leadership abilities, is the fact that his troops will always know where he stands as far as how the battle's going when they're on the field and they look at him, due to that massive bushy face.
Yeah, the face is brilliant. I think for me, based on the minis that we've seen already, I feel like what we're seeing is the updated concept of Old Hammer. And me and Val talked about this really early into the old world, and we talked about the different sort of styles of miniatures that are being produced by other 3D printers, 3D designers. Like Highland Miniatures is a really good example, and then there's the other guys that they've done a lot of orc stuff. I can't remember their name. You like their stuff. I can't remember what it is.
Avatars of War.
Avatars of War. And Avatars of War, I think Avatars of War were definitely doing, almost like quote for quote versions of the older minis, whereas I think Highland were doing maybe slightly updated versions of old minis. Go on, you go.
I would call that the other way around. I think Avatar. Anyway, I know what you're saying. Highlands does what I would say comical bootlegs of the old Hammer style. They're much more simple, less ornate. Whereas Avatars of War is probably taking that Brian Nelson orcish style and is elevated. They're very complicated. They got lots of extra jazz on them. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like there's sort of that old design style, which probably comes from hand sculpted style, and everything needs to be made out of green stuff. And versus the newer style, which would be CAD based. You can add all kinds of trinkets on there. If you have the file, you can put it in there. So, like for example, I think Griff Overwald's helmet was stolen for this guy, famous Blood Bowl player.
Yeah, very, very famous. Yeah, so my takeaway is it feels like an updated version of the old Hammer style. Like it's like the Games Workshop asked themselves, what are we in the future, sort of thing. Like if we were to carry on of designing old world minis from where we were, where would we have got to? And it feels like this is in keeping with that aesthetic, and is also identifiably very, very different from what we've seen from mainline studio when it comes to humans and how humans have been designed. So I personally really like it, but I think some people have taken, some people don't necessarily love it, which is fine, whatever.
I've seen the comment, and actually it's popping up in our chat right now, but I've seen the comment a lot that it has a very World of Warcrafty feel with the very large pauldrons, or just Warcraft feel, with the big pauldrons, those big shoulder pads, and stuff like that. And I've actually seen some like wistful, oh, why can't they just design it like this? And it's like a dude with a head the size of a friggin' watermelon and just like, please kill me sized hands, they all like, the thing is that the previous sculpting versions were stylized as well, right? Old Hammer it's that heroic scale. They are cartoonish because they are not properly proportioned at all, full stop. But they are things that I think people, it's a style that people came to recognize and enjoy as the aesthetic. These guys, I'm not sure how this guy matches up on an actual proportions. Like his armor is obviously very, a caricature of armor. It's not necessarily functional real life armor, but neither is anything else in this world.
No.
And I'd be curious to see how he is from a scaling perspective, because as we've been speculating a lot, there certainly seemed like there was a lot of models that were redesigned and have made their way into AOS. Maybe they were meant once upon a time to have been for Old World, or maybe they were meant once upon a time to be dual kits, to be used in both. But the AOS scaling, because there's been 10 years since we've seen regular releases for fantasy, for Old World, is definitely larger. It's probably closer to a true 32 millimeter scale, whereas previously the only thing that was 32 millimeters in the scale were literally faces and heads. That's why when I've said this before, but that's why when Space Marines went from old Space Marines to Primaris, their helmets, so like you can use a Space Marine head from the 90s on a Primaris Space Marine and it works because they made their body the right size. So I think that upscaling is essentially reproportionalizing. Wow, that's not a word. Of the miniature range. And so I'm going to be curious to see how this guy looks standing next to, for example, the Empire State Troops, because I would bet he stands a bit tall. So not even counting his sick helmet.
Yeah.
Which would look at that feather.
Yeah, big magical helmet. Big magical helmet, in fact.
It's a magical. So why don't we get into a little bit of the actual article, Rob? What are they actually saying in all of this?
This is our man, born to an officer in the state army of Talabakland, Hans von Lowenhacke, was always destined to serve the Empire, as was granted a junior commission once he had demonstrated that he was every bit as capable as commanding troops as veteran officers and often better. I'd also like to point out, I think he looks great as a miniature. I just want to say this.
I like him. Look at those calves.
This is how you sell the old world. You sell it with exactly the mini everyone wants. A badass human knight with a fuck-off Warhammer that's ready to do battle. And like this is it. This is how you do it. Like they did well with the Bretonnian foot guys. They did well with a bunch of the Bretonnian stuff, but this is good. Anyway, Hans defeated the goblins of the Red Eyes tribe by leading his warriors right through the ranks of goblins to take the head of their war boss, and sent his followers scattering later in his career when fighting for Middenland. His last-minute decision to create a rear guard for an advancing army, blunting the beastman ambush, gave other commanders time to react. And then we got some cool art. Shout out to the artist. Looks amazing.
Shout out.
And then Hans is currently seconded to the armies of Nuln as part of an agreement between Tabakland in the face of Raiklin's latest aggressions, adopting the line of Nuln into his armor and heraldry alongside his custom forged griffin helm, a magical artifact that's protected him from many killing blows over the years. Ooh.
Foreshadowing.
As a legendary mercenary commander, this is where we get into the spicy stuff. He inspires his troops, even those who fight under him, for the promise of warm meal, a place to sleep, and a bag of coins. And his strategic mastery over the years speaks for itself. So, mercenary commander is a special rule that he has, where if Hans is the army's general, friendly units with the mercenary special rule may benefit from the inspiring presence rule and may be joined by him. In addition to friendly mercenary units, are not subject to misbehaving mercenary rules. So should we explain mercenaries for people who might not be sure what we're talking about before we talk about anything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you want to do it?
I think I can.
Yeah.
So when you're putting your army list together, there are usually two other addendums that you can add. Allies, which we don't mess with, and mercenaries, which we have messed with. Usually about 25% of your army can be taken from mercenaries. Mm-hmm. And these are various units that have been sort of dripped out amongst the Arcane Journal so far. And I'm trying to think what might actually qualify as mercenary as of right now for the Empire. Maybe are there? Well, yes, I guess. They haven't said exactly how it's going to go, but they definitely showed some Imperial ogres. Mm-hmm. I think there are Imperial dwarves that we saw in the dwarf Arcane Journal.
Yeah.
And then there are some other ones, obviously, that you can take in other armies, but they aren't forces of good or whatever they're called now. And then the other thing that normally happens is that before the start of the game, you have to roll on the misbehaving mercenaries table. And on a roll of a 1, they do something that's annoying. Doom Seekers. Good shout, chat. Doom Seekers are able to be taken as mercenaries, which is funny. For those of you who don't know, Doom Seekers are like little dwarfy fanatics that are pretty badass. Very, very good unit. So this guy can roll right now with a bunch of dwarves, and they will do what he wants them to do, because sometimes they don't do what you want them to do.
Exactly. Yeah, it's because of the misbehaving. So what we're saying is with mercenaries, you gain access to lots of other potential units to put in your Empire roster who normally, which is like, you have access to them already, right? That's fine. You have those access to them. But with your ability to ignore the misbehaving mercenaries, which means you're going to be able to use Inspire and Presence, which is like the leadership value, which is really, really important. You're going to be able to use the BSB as well, so Battle Standard Bearer as well. That means that they become much more functional in your army. So what's happened is the misbehaving mercenary rule says that at the beginning in deployment you got to roll a dice, and then when you roll a dice on a 2-up, the unit is basically is fine and acts normal. But on a 1, you're going to roll on a chart, and when you roll on the chart, all sorts of bad stuff can happen. So you're going to be able to ignore that as well, which is pretty cool. So a load of really cool stuff.
Are you looking at Misbehaving Mercenaries right now, Rob?
I am looking at Misbehaving Mercenaries.
What kind of bad stuff even happens? Because I also I've never rolled the one, so I've never had to look at the chart. Is it bad? Is it really bad?
It's not there's a whole list of stuff. You can gain stupidity, as an example. You can have lower leadership. You gain ambushes, as an example. So, they're not necessarily the worst, but they're definitely not what you want to happen.
Yeah, it removes some of the control. So that's definitely pretty sick benefit.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then in addition, he's got the strategic mastery special, where in the scenarios where the players roll off to determine who takes the first turn, you apply a +1 or -1 modifier to the results of your roll. So that's nice.
Ooh. +1 or -1 to the results of your roll. Is that in addition to a +1 or -1 that you might already have?
Yeah, for going first.
And this is a shooting army?
A shooting army with +2 to go first.
That seems a bit rich.
Yeah, that's very good.
How do you feel about that?
I think it is what it is. Like, if you're going to make a gun line, you do want to go first. Going first is more effective. Mm-hmm. If it ends up that you can make an incredibly good gun line that can go first, then maybe, we did see that interview recently with the lead designer, JTY, who did say, just take more cannons. Maybe he was living in a world where all of his cannons were always going first.
Always going first. And who knows? Maybe there's gear you can give your cannons too that make them even better. But yeah, like a shooting army, because especially since I would assume a lot of things are going to be war machines. So that combines everything into one drop. Right. Mm-hmm. So I feel like an artillery themed artillery army has already a good chance at a +1, and suddenly you're getting a +2 that's going to really skew the odds of going first. That feels like it could be a pretty spicy mechanic, although maybe not the biggest win for interactive games of Old World, but we'll have to see how effective obviously they are.
I mean, we were playing a game where there were basically immortal dragons walking around, or bricks of 70 to 150 dudes. So, I think this is not going to be the thing that crushes the level of interactivity, but is at least going to threaten a couple of dragons out there in the world. If we end up with some shooting, we'll see. Maybe it's not enough.
We'll see. I'm just saying. If you were to wish list a thing for your shooting army, it's I go first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, right there.
Absolutely, especially in a mirror.
Yep,
especially in a mirror. Right. As
if I was hands, I would want a mirror because I am a beautiful man.
Exactly. That's so true. And as a general of the Empire, Hans von Lowenhacke can be included in any eligible army list, but he makes an ideal leader for a city-state non-army, which is, as Val said, is probably going to be shooting, which could take up to 25% of his points values as mercenaries to accompany the war machines and ranged units. His rules and those for the known are contained in the upcoming Arcane Journal. He will be a resin miniature. So that's cool. And that's fine, by the way. The resin miniatures from Forge World, if you've never picked up one, the detail on them is insane. And the lines are super clean. Who's someone who does a lot of mini manufacturing now. But doesn't necessarily go together perfect. So if you need to become a little bit better at gap filling sometimes. The lines are so smooth. They're so good.
This guy might have arms. Or he could be. He's probably not one. He's probably not one piece. He's probably different. He's probably a head and maybe his arms come off. Who knows?
Yeah, it is, as has been pointed out, it is weird that it does say 25% of your points can be mercenaries because they already can be. 25% can already be mercenaries. But I think that's just the article writer being I don't know what stuff is. Did you know you could take 25% mercenaries? People are whoa. Incredible news.
Or it's hinting that, in fact, they could take more than usual and they just got the number right. You never know. You never know if it's just a slight inaccuracy. Also, Rob, I just had an epiphany because I was staring at where this model might go together. Why his pauldrons are so big to accommodate those puffy sleeves.
The puffy sleeves. Why would no one want the puffy sleeves? You're playing Empire, my friends.
How could he fit his blouse underneath regular armor? Of course he's got to have huge pauldrons because he's got a sweet blouse on.
Yeah. He's also quite clearly not doing any frontline fighting. He's just, look at that. He's just got the pommeled helm. Look at that ring he's got. Like that's getting stolen.
Oh, that's actually nice.
He's gaudy. He's also the son of a previous commander. So everyone just calm down. He's not necessarily, we want him to be a frontline badass like Friedal, but he's probably leading from the back. Which is fine because that back is full of guns and cannons.
Lots of guns. Yes. Oh man, I can't wait to see. As someone who ran shooting Empire List and had a degree of fun with it, I am actually super pumped to see Null and how good or not good it could possibly be.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a really exciting time for Empire players. I think there's a lot still to like unpack, and Empire has been one of those armies which has struggled a little bit because when I first did the review for Empire, it doesn't have a lot of flavor as a book.
Little bland. It's kind of that baseline, right? Yeah.
So hoping this opens up a bunch of options. We have seen from other Arcane journals, normally like kit bashes, or you're able to do some like slightly different builds out of model kits. And Empire's very kit bashable, you could say.
Absolutely. And they brought back a lot of those iconic sets that traditionally, and this is actually one thing I do like Warhammer Facebook for, specifically the Old World group, is they bring back a lot of old White Dwarf articles. And I forget how much, and you see this in the way they write Old World, where they have like a recommended kit bash all the time. And that used to be a common thing in White Dwarf, would be, here's a neat little unit, especially, again, I'm assuming, about 6th edition era. They'd be like, here's a cool unit we created, and here's how you make it out of all of the various parts we have available. I know for Vampire Coasts, like the zombie pirates, that was apparently, they actually even sold for a while just a mix of the Empire Free Company with the zombie sprue. And that's how you made your zombie pirates. So it is cool that kit bashes are like built into the game. I like that.
Yeah. I think because at one point Games Workshop was actually a hobby company. So like there's all sorts of references in the deep lore to that.
That's right. You gotta know how to hold your book in the right angle to see the remains of a once proud hobby tradition. But SDS still keeping that flame alive, clearly. And this guy is a badass. Lowenhacke, although he did take off that orc's head, so maybe he's an upper hacky as well.
Yeah, maybe. Were you? Are you more pumped for Empire post this information? And same question to the people in the chat. Are you more pumped, less pumped? Where you at?
I'm just as pumped because I mean I do love playing as the humans for sure, as we've covered in the past. So, and I think in fantasy, I know you had a bunch of Empire stuff.
Yeah, I played Empire.
Yeah, so
I played Empire. I think my issue with Empire when I played with it during 8th edition was that it just didn't really, and it's similar to what the stat lines actually are now. They never nailed regiments fighting together. Like they never.
Oh, like the detachment thing.
Yeah, they never nailed it. And yes, there were some like tricksy ways of going about it with Light Council and other stuff like that. But I never really felt like that they nailed like the men holding the line in some ways. And so I just kind of fell by the wayside, especially for the far more engaging stuff that you could do like with Lizard Man, and obviously Chaos Dwarfs was super unique. But yeah, I had a whole Empire army, and I did think that they were super cool. I did give up a bit when I started building great swords, but nowhere near as much as I abandoned my High Elf project when I had to once build Phoenix Guard, which no, never again.
No, they're not fun to build.
Easily the worst miniature I'd ever built, maybe ever. Like
really,
yeah, I think
they don't look like much. They're just a guy holding a halberd.
Just doesn't work. Just doesn't go together.
It's probably also 3 pieces. I bet you like what? It's probably like 2 arms, and then you have to. I remember how they used to always do that, where like you had to like fit both hands onto the 2 arms, so you had to like know exact. Anyway, I can see how that would be true.
It was bad.
I take it for granted. I have some, but I've never built one in my life.
Yeah, they suck. They suck to build. But yeah, Empire is always something that's interesting, and I think like more than anything, it's got what easily the most like relatable and recognizable storyline to sell to an audience. Like if SDS were remotely interested in like commercial success, which they are not, let's be clear. That is,
and let's keep it that way.
Let's keep it that way. No thoughts about that, which is great. But if they were to be sensible and think about it for a little bit, obviously you've got all these different city states. They could build up all this internal story. You could, like, I know this might sound a little bit OTT, but you can literally recreate the kind of like Horus Heresy, not scale, but you can create the Civil War nature that existed, right? You've got that. That storyline is there.
Where is Black Library? Rob, go hang out in a cafe. There's all kinds of nerds who write books in those. Head down to the cafe and be like, there was one, and I have the limited edition on my shelf. Oh, wait a minute, it's a green screen. Anyway, behind us is the limited edition of the single Old World book that came with launch. And I'm just shocked because you're right, man. This is the lead up to the Great War Against Chaos, right? Like this is such, and like you're right. Like there's this incredible like breakdown in the Empire. There's all these squabbling factions. There's Magrietta. There's other people, I'm sure. Excuse me. There's other people, I'm sure. Like there's like just so many opportunities to tell cool stories in a really awesome setting. And where are they? Where are they, sir? What a bad signal.
It feels like I honestly feel like I would even be loath to call this Old World 1. I feel like this is Old World the prelude. I think that's like the more we're getting into this, the more we're seeing the releases. They're more they're just like, hey buddy, remember the Old World? You're like, yeah. It's like we're kind of releasing it. Like we're just chilling. This is like the early stages of a party where you're just like, do you need me to put some chips or crisps out? Like, is it like you need me to chop any guacamole?
Only the most enthusiastic nerds have showed up. Some parents, some folks who have to get out of there because the babysitter's leaving. They're just still setting it up. They're rattling around in the kitchen. They kind of have a look of panic on them because they didn't expect anyone to be here already. Yeah, I think you've nailed the vibe of what the Old World is right now.
That's absolutely where we're at, which is so fun. Like it's so fun because we all get to be like a little bit pumped and like. There's no set in stone what's going to be. It's also quite exciting as well because like what is going to be in the future? Like when 40K gets refreshed, it's like there's going to be a Space Marine book, there's going to be a Necron book, and like, that's fine. But like they especially don't in Age of Sigmar and 40K now expand into those things. But getting a Nuln army and some dude who leads a Nuln army, that's sick. If we end up getting some armies for the other cities and stuff, also sick. And if they do that with all of the different factions, you've got acres of room to grow, like acres. So they can have a great time with it. They can get really twisty. And I actually am a little bit more pro mini factions now than I ever have been. If you look at things like the Space Marine range or Stormcast Eternals range, most people will say that they're bloated. That's what they say. They're bloated. It's too much stuff. And you're like, okay, cool. And then when you go, okay, what about this faction? They're like, not enough stuff. And you're like, okay, so there's a happy medium. They're like, yeah. And like, when you reach that happy medium, no more releases. They're like, no, obviously I want more releases. And I'm like, well, you're going to go from point A to point B. And they're like, you've blown my mind. Go on.
I often do think back to like when Games Workshop was like, you know what? Fine. Screw you guys. And they just left and they just like turned off Facebook. They like unplugged their computers and they disappeared for 10 years. I understand where that impulse came from because they literally can't win, even if they were trying to. Like there's just like you say, like that bloat thing. But on the point of bloat, though, what is cool is that they don't have to bloat the miniature range because they're encouraging us to just make our shit ourselves.
I think
so that's one.
I agree with you, but I also think like little mini factions, like if you were to take, if you go for more of like a hunter style empire, releasing a bunch of actual mini kits for that in the future, super cool. With your troll horde, we just got a character basically, but we could release a couple of more different types of troll, and then you've got Orcs and Goblins roster, absolutely stupendous. But you're like, hey, I'm just a troll guy. I'm just trolls. You're like, you could really expand that out, is what I'm trying to say. Same way you could expand out a city, you could really expand that out. So there's a lot of, I don't know how many troll kits there are. What is there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, dedicated troll kits, 5. 5 dedicated troll kits, troll hag, all 3 types of troll and the special character, 5.
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
But then, troll cavalry, a troll riding a troll.
Troll on a troll.
Troll on a troll. Troll throwing a troll. 7. All right, so I think that we could see that more in the future. I'd love to see that. I'm hoping that's where SDS go as well, because they do that with Necromunda. They kind of did that with the Horus Heresy. You got special units like, the Galvorbak. You got these like very identifiable. These are only for the Ultramarines. These are only for this faction. By the way, did you know Mechanicum was a thing? Everyone's like, no. It's like, by the way, his custodies. You're like, whoa, calm your tits.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is like from just a game design perspective, what's interesting, especially if you have that big umbrella faction. What I really love about the Arcane Journals that they've done so far is that the Army of Infamy is less choices, but it gives you something for that, right? So like even with troll hordes, there's like tons of different ways to take it. With Orc Nomads, there's tons of ways to take it, despite the fact that there's actually less options available to you than the Grand Army itself. So I'm with you, man. The mini factions are good. They can be executed poorly, however. We just haven't really seen it yet, which is, I don't know, really bodes well for wherever this party goes later on,
It's going to be really fun. So let us know in the comments below what you think. Val, it's been cool chatting with you. But we've got so much more Empire to talk. We're doing an Empire deep dive very soon.
Deep dive! I had to think hard whether or not we did one already.
Oh.
We haven't. I checked. You have your awesome. There's the
overview.
What were they? Overview. Yeah, you had your awesome overview, but we have not deep dived it.
Where I said cannons are good and this is boring. that's my 6-second review. Cannons are good, but this is boring.
I love how a lot sometimes those takes like they go in and out of fashion. Like, cause like at first, like, cause you were like cannons are really good, and then I was like, nah, cannons aren't very good. Turns out cannons are still pretty damn good, guys. But Rob was just there from the beginning.
Yeah, but what did I say I didn't like that ended up being really good?
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, it was something.
I'm sure there's plenty of things, man.
I'm sure there's
Yeah. There's gotta be something.
Yeah.
Don't hit us up in the comments.
Don't let us know, chat, about our failures, but big us up for our pros. Thanks everyone on the Squarespace Patreon. Thanks to everyone for the show. Hope you've enjoyed it. Loads of love. See you soon. Bye.